Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to tonight's main event. In this corner, we're stocked like a rock despite the botched launch, and a stream so strong salmon don't stand a chance. We're talking cloud gaming, so please welcome the first try at it from the search giant from Mountain View, California, Google Stadia! And in this corner, the beta with all the flavor, the purple and black that will make your hands black and blue. Please welcome the newest way to pay and play from Seattle, Washington, Amazon Luna! And what sport am I mocking here? I don't really know. I don't watch sports. Is it the boxing one or like the wrestling or like the karate one, right? Is that what this is? I don't know. Despite that intro being absolutely over the top and frankly unnecessary, the sentiment is valid, I'd argue. I've been promising a Luna vs. Stadia video for a while now, so pomp and circumstance is warranted. Now originally, that versus video was going to be my only Luna video, but as I played more and more with Luna, I realized that I needed to make separate videos dedicated to each of Luna's important aspects, those being the controller, the input latency and streaming quality, and then I would also need an overall review video that includes my thoughts on the game selection, user interface, and the subscription model. All three of those videos are linked below. They're not required to enjoy this video, but feel free to watch if you would like to. So now that I am properly familiar with Amazon Luna, I feel like I can confidently articulate how it compares against Stadia. Unfortunately, one of Stadia's problems is that its controller is upside down. I don't know how to fix that. Take two. I feel like I can confidently articulate how Luna compares against Stadia. How does the input latency compare? How does the controller themselves compare? And how does the game selection, user interface, and all of the other important goodies compare? First, let's talk about streaming quality. Now, I don't have fancy tools to measure streaming quality. All I can go on is my experience, my subjective, probably somehow wrong experience. And I can't say when it comes to the quality of the stream, Luna and Stadia are very comparable, especially when using a wired Ethernet connection, which is the way I would absolutely recommend anybody play games on any streaming service, if at all possible. I've said this before, I'll say it again because I love saying it, my internet speed is amazing. It's probably way more amazing than yours, which means, of course, that I'm better than you. And honestly, I probably shouldn't even be talking to you people. If you can even be called people, am I right? But since I'm here, I'll continue. So my internet speed is great, sure, but speed, I've realized, isn't really the problem with game streaming. The real thing to pay attention to is the reliability of the connection. A Wi-Fi connection, no matter how fast, will still periodically fail, even momentarily, in ways that a wired connection simply won't. Now, I've said it before, but even a few skipped frames only every once in a while is enough to ruin the game streaming experience, because you as the player are preoccupied with anticipating the next skip, which means you aren't able to focus on the game. And not focusing on the game is the wrong way to play a game. I know, I shouldn't say there's a right and wrong way to play a game, but hey, I gotta stand by it. You should pay attention when you're playing a game. All right? You can hate me in the comments if you want. So when using a wired Ethernet connection, both services perform really well, with Stadia just edging out Luna. With Stadia, I simply forget that I'm not playing on a local machine. That's impressive. With Luna, I sometimes, but very rarely, am reminded that I'm not on a local machine. A few skipped frames in a 3-hour play session is problematic, but it's okay, I suppose. Now, if you can only play using Wi-Fi, your mileage will largely depend on your router and Wi-Fi mesh setup. My nearest access point is 1 floor up, which is not ideal, and still, I'm getting only rare image stutters with Luna, and Stadia, obviously, of course. So the winner when it comes to stream quality, Stadia, barely, but both are really great using wired connections. Okay, so now let's move on to the actual input use. Finally, these props I've been waving around will Makes sense. So the stream quality is the baseline requirement. If stream quality isn't great, then why would a streaming service even exist, right? So we've got to move beyond the absolute minimum requirement and onto the penultimate minimum requirement. I don't get to use the term penultimate very often. It just makes you feel good. It makes you feel superior. Like almost like having a faster internet than you makes you feel. I'm talking, of course, about the input mechanism. Without a controller or a keyboard or a touchscreen, it can't really be called a video game, right? In my dedicated Luna controller review, I was pretty harsh on the Luna controller for one major design flaw. The shape of the grip right here, it prevents pain-free maneuverability of the index finger. The Stadia controller, however, is, quite honestly, perfect. It's my favorite gaming controller. But comparing the proprietary controllers of each platform isn't really fair, because these controllers aren't even required to use the platforms. So let's instead judge the platforms by how well each accepts alternative means of input. Both platforms purport to accept multiple types of input, and though the Stadia compatibility list is longer, the truth is both platforms state that they can handle the majority of inputs you're likely to want to use, including a mouse and keyboard, Xbox controllers, and the DualShock 4. Third-party controllers can work as well, though neither platform promises compatibility with specific ones, and I don't blame them for it. That would be quite an exhaustive list. But Stadia still wins out here, not because of the breadth of compatibility, but because of ease of compatibility. Stadia doesn't require local drivers to be installed because Stadia doesn't have a local client to boot from. All of the driver magic is handled in Stadia's cloud servers. This has the added benefit of being able to hot swap controllers during your play session seamlessly. Now, why would you want to do this? I don't know, maybe your controller breaks in the middle of a combo and you need to grab another one quickly to finish up, like how a drummer keeps a quiver of drumsticks at hand so that they can hot swap in the middle of an unexpected stick snap. You can be a figurative rock star mimicking a literal rock star. Like this guy, look at that. That's so smooth. Just picks it right up. Doesn't miss a beat. Literally. I do have an entire video where I hot swap a bunch of input devices for testing. That's linked in the description below. Now, to be fair, Luna may be able to do the same, but I couldn't test that. Despite my PC having all the right specs, I could not play Luna in a Chrome browser. However, one of the requirements, even for playing in the browser, is based on your operating system. So given that, I'm guessing even when playing in the browser, Luna is checking your system for controller drivers and such, so I doubt hot swapping is possible. Let me know in the comments below if you've been able to test hot swapping with Luna while playing in a Chrome browser. The main point with all of this controller talk is, even though both platforms accept pretty much the same variety of inputs, it's because Stadia's setup process is dummy-proof that I'm giving the win here to Stadia. Yes, I'm saying that my inability to connect to the Chrome browser with Luna could be because I'm a dummy. Now onto the user interface. So now that the stream is stable and we've got our controller, we've got to be able to access the games, right? Here, Luna is the clear winner. Stadia focuses on simplicity and lack of clutter. Immediately upon accessing the system, you're presented with an option to jump back into your most recent game. If you want to play a different game, simply scroll down. All other options are accessible via a few options in a menu at the top of the screen. Stadia's user interface is perfectly functional, no matter what screen you're on. Luna's interface is also perfectly functional in all the ways that Stadia's is. However, Luna offers a bit more. Stadia's giant latest game button is replaced with a latest news type scroll, which in turn reduces the latest game button to occupy the lead button space in a row dedicated to recently played games. This recently played games row is then followed by several other playlist type rows that are pre-filtered to show things like the latest game additions, game selections from different channels, editors' picks, and more. Both interfaces are simple, both are clean, but Luna's feels more functional. In addition, if you are the type that feels Luna's interface is cluttered, don't worry, because Luna has a search feature. Now it's limited, but at least it exists. Stadia, on the other hand, which I will remind you, as my ringside announcer stated earlier in this video's intro, is the first try at it from the search giant being Google. Google Stadia does not have a search functionality at all. That's weird. Also, another weird little quirk that I need to point out is that once you claim or purchase a game on Stadia, there's no way to simply access the game's description page anymore. Rather, any interaction you have with the game button after claiming or purchasing takes you directly into playing the game. I get Stadia's desire to get players into their games as quickly as possible, but for nerds like me who want to see some of the game's metadata, I have to use a dummy Stadia account to do so. I admit I might be the only person annoyed by this decision, but remember, I'm very important. I have the best internet, after all. So fix it, Stadia. The user interface winner is Amazon Luna. So now that we're able to navigate around the platforms, what features do each offer that aren't specifically related to the games themselves? I'll get to the game selection soon, don't worry. Luna has made the strange decision to not include achievements or trophy functionality. Now, I don't believe this is a decision of allocating development resources, as I would assume the same achievements created for other platforms would be easily portable to Luna. Rather, I see the lack of achievements functionality as Luna's simple disinterest in social gaming. Amazon, perhaps surprisingly, hasn't really dabbled in the social media platform space. Achievements are essentially badges meant to reflect gamer status among other gamers in a social way. Without gamer profiles and a social network display, achievements aren't really that important. Sure, achievements can also be a way for non-social gamers to stay motivated and spend more time in a single game, but game time in one game isn't really indicative of Luna's business model, which is all about selling subscriptions to multiple channels. If anything, Amazon wants Luna players to not play specific games too long. Amazon wants you to feel comfortable with just dropping one game in favor of another. Do that enough times and eventually you'll need to subscribe to a new channel with more games. Stadia, however, does have achievements, which my endorphins respond to no matter how much the logic centers of my brain make fun of those endorphins for doing so. So I think having achievements is a positive for Stadia. Stadia also currently has a 4K resolution option, which Luna does not yet have, but they will in the future. So no negative points for Luna there. Both platforms purport to play on a variety of devices and screens, which for me is a promise Stadia has lived up to, but Luna has not. As I said earlier, I cannot get Luna to work on Chrome despite having all of the necessary required specs. It's kind of frustrating. So as far as features go, I'll have to give the win to Stadia for now. But given that Luna is in beta, I would imagine more features coming prior to Luna's full alpha release. On to game selection. Game selection is going to be a hard thing to compare, both because tastes in games is entirely subjective and because each platform parses out their games and offers them in different ways. First, Luna operates with a channel model. Currently, Luna offers 2 channels, each with a selection of games unique to that channel. The Luna Plus channel is basically the indie game channel. Ubisoft Plus is, well, a channel full of Ubisoft games. Each channel requires a separate subscription fee. Perhaps most importantly, Luna does not offer the ability to purchase individual games. Games are only available as part of channel subscriptions. I actually really like this approach. I get into my reasons why in my full Amazon review video, which is linked in the description below, but here's the gist. I like the idea of having collections of games curated for me that cater to my tastes. With so many games released every single day, it's nice to have the vetting done for me, if that vetting actually turns up great games consistently, as Luna Plus has so far done. Also, if the Ubisoft Plus channel is anything to go by, future channels will be aligned to specific publishers. This should make acquiring new channels easier for Amazon, because they can just work directly with those publishers and get a big batch of games. Also, this makes it easier for me as a conscientious consumer to know which channels I want nothing to do with, or which publishers I want nothing to do with, like Ubisoft Plus, because Ubisoft is a garbage company. In a previous video linked below, a lot of videos linked below, I talked about how streaming services might make it harder to vote with my wallet. Now, my hope is that by leveraging a publisher-centric channel model, Luna is making it possible for me to subscribe to a channel with almost as clear a conscience as I would be able to do when purchasing individual games. Stadia, on the other hand, offers both a subscription model and a single purchase model. In this way, they are the exact same as PlayStation and Xbox. All 3 platforms offer a subscription that includes a selection of games, but also gives you the option to purchase games individually. Stadia has the more flexible model, but I'm still really curious about where Luna's channel model could go. So Luna and Stadia are pretty equal here, but I don't want any category to be a tie, so I'll break the tie with these 2 points. I personally love the indie game aesthetic, and this is my comparison video, so personal taste plays a bit of a role. And 2, and probably more importantly, Luna runs on Windows servers and NVIDIA's GPUs, so it's comparatively less work for developers to bring their existing Windows games over to Luna compared to Stadia. Stadia requires developers to port games to Linux. So with that in mind, I'm going to give the win here to Luna, because I anticipate games coming to the platform at a faster rate. Lastly, cost. This is the last category for comparison, which I won't be comparing at all, because ultimately you have to decide if the cost of something is friendly to your budget. I don't know your net income, okay? But if I had to guess, I'd say $1,246 per week. There's like one person out there who's like, holy crap, that is exactly right. This guy's a god. And then there's another person out there who's like, you're 2 cents off. You're such an idiot. So which platform is the Grand World Heavyweight Series Super Bowl champion of the 2 services that I compared? Google Stadia, but only by a hair. Google Stadia's overall stream dependability just barely edges out Amazon Luna, which in turn gives Stadia a 3-2 victory over Luna. But the truth is, both systems are really good. And with Luna still being in beta, I anticipate a lot of growth in the stream quality department. Once Luna has a full year of alpha access, much like Stadia has so far been granted, I'll expect these platforms to really truly be equal, meaning the only choice you will have to make between the 2 is the same choice us gamers have been making for decades. Which platform has the games I want to play? And only you can answer that for yourself. Speaking of you, how about you? Have you used any of these services or both of these services? If you've used both, which do you prefer? What did I get wrong in this video? I'm sure there's plenty of things I did. I like to ask that. Make me smarter, make me better. Hey, and while you're down there commenting, why not just subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon to make sure you don't miss future videos. If you're still watching this video, you obviously like it for some reason, right? So it only makes sense to subscribe, or at the very least, give it a like. Thank you.